Hi, my name is Armando Diaz, and this is a recording for the Advanced Operating Systems. The project is working with Nginx. As we can see here, we have four different requirements. The first step is to create two servers, and we will also create an additional server for the load balancer. So these servers are gonna be hosted on AWS. As we can see here, we have server 1, server 2, and load balancer. And these are EC2 or virtual machines, as we can see here. And I'm just gonna go back to the instructions. So we need two servers. We need to open, well, just create a very simple uh, web page where we can see uh, just at least a small difference that just can tell us that we are looking at two different servers. So on the right side, we can see a README file. So these are just the instructions that were executed in the terminal for each server. So as we can see here, the first step is updating the packages from the operating system, and then we are installing a NVM, and this one is because we are going to use Node.js for our web server. So after we install the NVM, we just need to update the profile configuration file, run this command to that is the source bash file, and after that we are ready to install Node.js. The version that we are using for this project is version 16. As we can see here, once we have that, we can execute npm install, and we are gonna use the yarn package manager from Node.js to control which packages we are going to install for our web server. We are also going to use React. So this is the app JavaScript function that we have set up in our servers. And as we can see here, this is very simple. We are just showing this is server 1, and well, this is my name, Armando Diaz. We are gonna go to look this at the moment, and after that, this section until step 7, this is gonna be a replicator for server 1 and server 2. Now if we go to the load balancer, for the load balancer we are gonna install Nginx, and after that we enable it. Once it's enabled, we can start the Nginx, and once this is running, we will edit the configuration file. So this is the location of this configuration file, and this is where all the magic happens. So if we see here, we have two different code blocks. So the first one is showing the reverse proxy. So this is very simple. This is just telling us that we are going to listen to the port 80, and the location of our server is this one in particular. So we have here the IP address and also the port where this web server is running. So this is going to be the same thing for the load balancer, but in the case of the load balancer, we are going to use the command upstream. We're going to name our upstream web server, and this web server is going to be pointing to two different virtual machines, and these are the IP addresses for each virtual machine, and each virtual machine is running the same web page on the port 8080. We are also using two different weights just to control the traffic and just send the traffic using these weights. We are just using the same syntaxes that the proxy reverse proxy. And as we can see here, the only thing that will change for the proxy pass is that the HTTP endpoint is using the web server upstream that we define above. So I'm just gonna go to look at the code of the web server number one. So this is our web server number one. We can see here on the left side it says EC2 user SSH web server number one. And if we go to the app Javascript script, we can see the code which is pointing to web server number one. As we can see here, this is already compiled, and this is pointing to this location. And we can control here the port where this is going to be listened using this environment configuration file that is on the right. And we are gonna do the same thing with server 2. So I'm just gonna open server 2. This is server 2 as we can see here. And now if I go to the code, the same file, this one says web server number 2. Now I'm just gonna go to the browser, and these are the different web servers. Let me just close this because we don't need it right now. And let's open server 1. Then this is the public API address. I'm just gonna go and click here. This is gonna open a new tab. I'm just gonna open here the port number, and this one should say web server 1 as we can see here. I'm just gonna repeat the same process, but now using the web server number 2. Okay, we are using HTTP and we are using the port 8080. Okay, so we have web server 2, web server 1, and now we want to open our load balancer. Our first experiment is gonna execute the reverse proxy. So for this one, I'm just gonna open right now a new tab just to prepare. So I'm gonna run this right now. This is pointing to server 1 right now because I executed already some of the commands, but I'm gonna start over. So I'm just gonna go to the load balancer. Okay, this is the load balancer. Okay, so I'm just gonna click here on the we're gonna edit the configuration file, and as we can see here, this is the code that is gonna be used for the load balancing, and this is the code that we are gonna use for the proxy server. So right now this proxy server is pointing to the server 1, which is this one, and we are just saying this server is hosted on the port 8080 and we should be just ready to go. I'm just gonna close this. I'm gonna restart, and yeah, I'm gonna refresh. This is the load balancer, we can see here that this is the load balancer because this is open on the port 80. We are not specifying the port number on next to the AP address. So when we don't do that, we know that this is on the port 80. So right now this is only gonna show web server 1 every time I refresh, because that's the only reverse proxy, or the proxy server that is pointing right now. So we are good to go right now. So I'm just gonna go back to the same file. I'm gonna open the configuration file, and let's edit this file again. But now we are gonna activate the load balancer. So I'm just uncommenting some of these lines of code, and okay, let's leave it like this. So if we see here, we are gonna use the load balancer. We have two different servers. These servers are gonna be used in this load balancer, which is gonna host and balance the traffic using these two weights. So the server number 1 should show up more often than the server number 2, because the weight for the first one is higher, as we can see here. This is this is everything. So I'm just gonna save the file. I'm gonna restart. I'm gonna go back, and I'm gonna refresh the browser. So we have server 1 right now, server 1, server 1, server 1, server 2, server 2, server 1, server 1, server 1, server 1, server 2. Okay, so our load balancer is working very well. I'm gonna go back to the instructions just to make sure that we are doing everything. So we have two servers, and we have an additional one that is gonna be our load balancer. As we saw, we set up our Nginx river proxy. That was the first experiment that we tested, and then we activated the load balancing using the upstream. And here it says that we should use at least two load balance methods. So we tested the weighted, and we are gonna test the least connected. So I'm gonna go back to the load balancer server. I'm gonna edit this file again. This is the main file, which is very important, and I'm gonna uncomment this line and least connect. So once it's uncommented, we can save the file, we can restart it, we can go in and check the documentation. In the documentation, it's very clear. If you don't set up the load balancer method, it's gonna use for default the round robin. So we tested the round robin using two different weights, weight equal to 3 and weight equal to 1 for server 1 and server 2. And now we are gonna activate the load balancing method called list connections. So this is very simple. We just added this piece of code in our configuration file. We already restarted our Nginx server, and if we go back and to here, we can see here just the same thing, but I mean it's just like a different load balancing method. So it's gonna be changing the traffic using that specific method, but it's just working as it should. So we are really good to go. we saw that this is server 1, this is the AP address, this is server 2, this is the other AP address, port 8080. I'm just repeating the same thing that I did at the beginning just to show you that it's working well, and this is the load balancer. So this is everything, I believe. I'm just gonna go back to the instructions again. Oh, these are the instructions. Instructions. Okay, so this one, okay, the last thing is just record this and we are fine. Okay, thank you.